school, it'd be easier to find a pen, right?
Get your mic. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brett Provenzano, the proud superintendent of Fairport Central School District. I'm here with our business official, Assistant Superintendent Matt Stevens, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Mr. Douglas Luff. Board of Education President Tim Sliz is also here this evening as a means of support. I was very encouraged today walking throughout our facility here at Fairport High School. Before I came here, I was able to see a slew of different athletic contests occurring, and it was great to see so many fans and so many student athletes engaging in after-school extracurricular activities. We saw students participating in drama club also here at the high school as they participate and plan for their spring drama production. So lots of great things that are occurring. We're here tonight to have a community session on the proposed 2021-22 school budget. Over the weekend, we shared a thought exchange, and today we're going to review the thought exchange. We're going to address the top and bottom thoughts with those who are viewing. We're also going to take some time to answer questions and comments from the thought exchange, and then go to our live chat in the YouTube live stream that you are viewing this presentation on. Now, in the live chat, you will see that there's a Google form on the bottom left-hand corner that will give you an opportunity to ask questions, and we'll do our best to answer these questions this evening, and if we do not have answers to questions, we will be certain to post them. We hope this is an information session that is worthwhile and gives you the opportunity to learn more about our budget. Thank you for tuning in. At the end of the session, again, we will provide a written overview of this exchange and the top questions and answers by the end of this week. You will also be able to see the answers and questions and comments to this exchange in its entirety by the end of this week as well. The thought exchange question was, what thoughts, questions, or comments do you have regarding the proposed 2021-22 school budget to be voted on Tuesday, May 18th? 137 community members participated. There were 69 thoughts and 2,200 ratings. These ratings will help us give an insight into some of the expectations and hopes for our budget. Some of the major themes of our thought exchange were class sizes. Our community, those who participated, had strong feelings and rated class sizes as a high expectation and interest as we create the 21-22 school year budget. And we'll be talking more about that as we move throughout this exchange or this follow-up on the exchange, and you'll see some general themes arise. There's lots of appreciation for the great work that's occurring, for our educators, for the care and support that they have been engaged in throughout the past year and a half, and particularly this past school year. There's strong interest in human resources and hiring. There were 8 total thoughts with a rating of 3.4. Return to school expectations, 8 thoughts with 3.4 rating as well. Facilities planning, we had some community members who rated this as a top interest as well with a 3.3 rating. 21 total thoughts on programming, the rating came out at 3.2. And the concept or idea of budgeting and fiscal sustainability, there were 13 total thoughts or a rating of 3.1. Some of the top thoughts included, again, thoughts that had the most amount and or the highest ratings. Now, I'm not going to read every single one of these top 10, but it's pretty much overwhelmingly appreciated and lots of support for class sizes. people see the value in having smaller class sizes as we go through the budget season. We definitely plan for smaller class sizes on the lower end of our staffing needs so we can make sure that we're interacting with our students. This has been a board priority and expectation, and as we return to full-time school this fall, it will continue to be a priority, and it's great to see that our community supports this as a whole. Again, there was comments about our Fairport educators being able to make a difference, being amazing as well. Some of the bottom thoughts that had the least amount and or lowest ratings. And again, these are worth recognizing. All thoughts matter. So there's top thoughts that were rated highly, and bottom thoughts that had the least amount or the lowest ratings. But again, it's worth recognizing and making sure that we always understand what our community's interests are. Full-time classes for all students. There was themes of political views, making sure that we keep political views out of the classroom, making sure that we remain objective, that we, as a public school, provide information that promotes critical thinking and awareness, but not doing it in a political way, keeping activism out of our schools. Sticking to textbooks was a view that was shared, making sure that teachers do not share their views. The budget should be aligned with enrollment. If enrollment was down, the budget should go down relatively, and we'll be able to address that question. There was a question about masking or no masking. Again, I think it's just it signifies the times and the interest of our community. There's greater questions out there that people are interested to know, and as we move through, we will definitely be addressing those questions as we enter the fall. There are some individuals out there who, again, were frustrated with the past year. Many school members were frustrated as well. That was also reflected in the thought exchange. There was one bottom thought that asked, how does the budget reflect the district's priority of equity and inclusion? The district needs to be invested in diversity, equity, and inclusion. That was a bottom thought. Here's an interesting slide. Thought exchange is a powerful tool in that it's able to pick up themes based upon words or sentences or phrases that were used. This slide shows the differences between those who are taking the survey and some common high interest themes as well. This initial slide speaks to the district having support. Unfortunately, it's the loud people that tend to get heard. Again, these are thoughts that were written right on the thought exchange, which you will be able to see in full. There was another, again, difference between how does the budget reflect the district's priorities of equity and inclusion and the district's need to invest in DEI. On the opposite side of that, side B, again, not as highly rated, but it's a polar opposite. You could see at side A, there was 34 responses to 17. Again, asking us to get activism out of the schools, disconnecting from Monroe County's radical curriculum from Pathstone. Again, a polar opposite from what we were seeing from the supported side as well. And it's important to see the range of opinions and differences in our community. The purpose of this slide is to ultimately be a unifier for us to identify the things that are important that we need to continue to communicate moving forward, and we hear it loud and clear. And again, you'll see a common theme of much appreciation for class sizes and how it makes a difference in making sure that we keep class sizes under 24. I would imagine that's for the secondary level. Again, here's another different slide. It's important that we share the multiple perspectives of all people and experiences of our history, implementing anti-racist curriculum and ensuring the books we are using to teach are written by a diverse array of authors is necessary. Again, this was a comment that received many ratings And then on the opposite side of that, you see, I'm thrilled that my student has only 1 year left. The district has lost its way and driven by a vocal minority of people. We are now adjusting the experience of all students to accommodate a few. Again, it's a matter of just understanding where people are. Higher rating on the left again. I want my children to see the diversity of our world reflected back at them in their classrooms. What efforts are being made to hire more teachers of color? We will be addressing that as well throughout this session as it relates to our budget. And then there's one question here, but before I get to it, I want to speak to, again, the common theme in the middle about class sizes and the importance of class sizing, how we can continue to invest in class sizes because in addition to high quality teaching and pedagogy, the class size certainly makes a difference. It allows for meaningful interactions to occur. I'm proud to say that our school board has, since I've been here, made this a priority, and throughout the pandemic, and even as we transition to full return in the fall, it continues to be a priority. On the polar opposite side, there was a thought that spoke to voting down one portion of the budget, the administration portion of the budget. Or do we have to vote yes or no as a whole? This money does not benefit students. We'll be talking about that in a moment. Mr. Stevens and I will be getting into, the components of the budget and how they're all related and how it's a complete budget. It's a three-part budget that's voted on its entirety, but we'll be reiterating that as we move forward. How are we planning to ensure all students are back next year regardless of distancing requirements? No one disagreed with that. Everyone was on the same page with that. There's no differences there. Everybody wants students back in the fall full time, and we are planning for that to occur. And what is in the budget to provide additional remedial help for students K-5? The pandemic has left many students struggling. All students should be met where they are, and they deserve necessary support. Again, there was no polar opposite thought to that, which means that people support, as a whole, those statements. Again, a common thought about class sizes, making sure that we keep them keep low class sizes as a priority moving forward, and we'll be talking about how we will be doing that moving forward. In essence, a majority of our budget is spent on our programs. As I said in the beginning of this session, when I walked in the schools this afternoon, there was so much energy, so much positive excitement. It was great to see our student athletes participating, our drama club participating. It's great to see our gyms being used right now by outside groups, and our fans and family members supporting their loved ones. Things are moving forward. This is about our program. This budget is about our program. It tells our story. And that speaks to the investment we make in elementary class sizes. It speaks to our health curriculum, K-5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. In Fairport, we invest in health as early as kindergarten through 5th grade. We do not have to do that. The board makes it a priority to do so, and we will continue to talk about that as we move forward. And our students have a vibrant health curriculum. Performing and graphic arts. Nobody does it better. Our students have an incredible amount of electives to choose from. Our music program is recognized as tops in Monroe County. We have a vertical program. That's an investment. It builds relationships. It helps our students be the best performers that they could be, and it's coveted by many different educators throughout the county. And I'm proud to be a part of that. We have an expansive continuum of services and special ed programming, our occupational education in Fairport. Again, that's our commitment to Boces EMCC, where we have over 170 students participating in Boces classes, so they get certifications, they have special opportunities that we do not provide here. That takes a commitment, and we'll be talking about that commitment in a little bit. And how it impacts the budget, and in particular, our administrative budget that was mentioned earlier. Mental health services. We have over 30 mental health professionals, including counselors, psychologists, and social workers. There's so many things that we do here in our Fairport school community because we believe in wellness. We know that this is the priority. As students have transitioned back K-6 to full-time, 5 days a week school, this has been a priority. As we move through the summer and into the fall, it will continue to be a priority, and we will build upon the great work that we're already doing so we could support our students, support our families, provide them networks of support. Our co-curricular activities, we have over 100 clubs in our Fairport schools. Our Board of Education knows, and this is driven by research and best practices. Our students, that's sometimes the best part of their day. I mentioned, walking through our halls after school, it's alive with students, student voice, student energy, interacting with our professional staff in clubs. Most recently, over the past 2 years, and including this year, you see that we'll bolster our clubs in the K-5 arena. Curriculum writing, making sure that we're meeting the needs of our students, managing curriculum as we move from the hybrid model or this past year to the fall to full-time school. We'll be reviewing our curriculum maps, making sure that they're accurate, making sure that they're meeting students where they are, adjusting our scope and sequence. We have an expansive summer programming opportunity. As a result of this budget, we look forward to providing more opportunities this summer, especially as we transition out of the pandemic and into the school year. Our students need to adapt and feel comfortable and welcomed in our schools. This summer will be an opportunity for us to get students who need that extra support, who need to get acclimated to school. We have focused professional development, so our staff can reap the benefits of being really connected to our strategic initiatives. Technology has been an initiative, a board goal this past year. As we added tech coaches, we've added devices, so our students have access to devices and even hardware such as Wi-Fi for those who don't or can't afford these devices at home. I would also say our elective programs at the high school, that's one of our points of pride. In Fairport, we offer up to 98 electives. This does not even account for our honors level courses in our core areas or world languages. We have 13 business electives, 10 technology electives, 4 family and consumer science lessons electives, where many districts have gotten rid of family and consumer sciences. We see it as valuable. Many of our students take family and consumer science as a pathway to graduation. 11 music options, of course, PE and health, 8 math electives, 11 English electives, 11 science electives, social studies, and world languages. Again, it's points of pride. It gives our students an opportunity to explore, take different classes, and really express themselves and develop their voice. Mr. Stevens.
Great, thank you, Mr. Provenzano. So the next piece, as mentioned, we've talked about, a question surrounding the administration portion of the budget and changes. Here you'll see on the slide the 3 different components that school districts are required to present the school budget in. It's a program portion. You can see here, 76% of the budget. That's the bulk of what we do. Centers around the instructional programs and services we have in the district. The administrative portion, that would be those pieces that support leadership and operation of the district, administration of the programs and services. Some of the costs you'd see in here would be central office and building administration, public information, curriculum program development, as well as a key piece here is the Boces administrative and capital expenditures. So school districts, being a component district in Monroe 1 Boces, in using the services through Boces, we're required to share in the portion of their administrative costs and capital costs. And then the third portion of the budget is the capital portion. You can see admin and capital, those are both 12% of the total budget to add up to the full 100%. Just to draw out the administrative portion, you see a kind of a little skewed increase here of $1.3 million. Very important to identify that Boces, Monroe 1 Boces, has a capital improvement project taking place. It's on a 3-year payment schedule, and here Fairport has their second payment in the payment schedule, which is an increase of $1.1 million. So really the overall increase here in the administrative portion of the budget is primarily due to that $1.1 million increase. Without that increase, the admin portion of the budget really only would have went up 1.43%, or $213,000. So, talking about some of the pieces that Mr. Provenzano mentioned before surrounding the Eastern Monroe Career Center program, which is the occupational ed program that our students participate in. Our special ed students participate in the programs over at Boces. Boces has some building infrastructure upgrades, program improvements for the buildings and services that our students are able to take advantage of. I don't know if you want to add a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I think that says it well, but it's worth emphasizing, these are services that our students use. We receive aid on these 170 students who participate in these programs. They use their facilities. They come out of Boces with opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't be able to have in our school district, just because of the scale that they offer them, at the ability to provide certifications that make students employable right after high school, engineering technicians. I know that many of our students take advantage of those programs. And again, special ed programming is so important because at these Boces facilities, our students will have an opportunity to have upgraded facilities when they participate in their programs that are available to them at Boces. That's 170 students. So we have an opportunity or an obligation to make that payment, as other Monroe County school districts are having the same budget line.
Correct, yeah. Other component school districts, as part of the agreement, all have a share and portion of the expense, and it's based on a formula that's used at the state level, the regional weighted average daily attendance calculation. So it's a formula is determined by the state and how that sharing percentage works for schools. Really important to highlight that on the revenue side of the budget, there is an actual Boces aid coming back to the district. So overall, we've seen in previous presentations, our expense-based aid, which is money that the school district spends in one year and is aided on the next, actually is an increase of over $700,000. And that's primarily related to this Boces capital payment that we have next school year. So just wanted to highlight that. Budget's presented in three components: program, administrative, and capital. And the main increase within the administrative portion is really that obligated payment we have to Boces for their capital project.
So yeah, it sort of sticks out there, the 8.84%. We appreciate that our community has definitely noticed that. But I would hope that we would answer that question in full on why that is 8.4% and how there is a district benefit to it, and how we do receive a corresponding revenue on the other side of the ledger for that. We are moving to the portion we are going to address very specific questions that people had on the thought exchange. Again, we will be taking these questions and embedding them in the thought exchange. We took these questions right out of the thought exchange, and we'll be adding them to the thought exchange over the next couple days and posting them. But for our purposes, we just took them out so we could scroll through them. Again, class sizes, we know that quality instruction matters. We know that the interactions that occur in a classroom matters. Our Board of Education has always made that a priority. When our students arrive to school in the fall, the social emotional well-being of our students will remain the priority. Lower class sizes helps us to achieve this priority and gives us the opportunity to interact more frequently, conference with students, and really get to know them. This has been and will continue to be a priority. We are always monitoring our enrollment and class sizes to ensure that our staff levels are staffed at the lower levels of our grade bands. And again, you'll see in the 6-8 to 9-12 arena, this was a specific question about high school. We'll respectively staff at 23 to 26 in the 6-8, and in the 9-12, we will staff 24 to 27, but on the lower ends, 23 and 24. We are watching those very closely, and if we need to add sections, we will be able to do that as we had planned for with our federal dollars, which we will be talking about as we move forward, which do not impact our general fund or this budget. There will be anomalies, though, as in any budget, or excuse me, as in any master scheduling. You don't always get at that 23 or 24, especially when you're trying to meet the range of learners. You will see class sizes in the 20s, in the lower 20s, but you might see a class or two at 26 or 27. But as a whole, we are committed to the 23 and 24 in the respective bands. There was a question about clubs. How can we support more clubs and in-school enrichment at the elementary level too? There's lots of talk about AP at the high school, but very few enrichment opportunities at the elementary school. We are planning for additional clubs in each building's grades 3 through 5. K2, we do not provide clubs. Those kiddos and those families want those children, for the most part, home after school, and the 3-5 will be experiencing the clubs. This has been a board priority. We added clubs last year in the budget. This year, the board understood that the kids will be coming back to school from a pandemic and made it a priority and provided more resources, again, using federal funds to continue to support elementary after-school activities relative to their interest and needs. They'll be developing that, they being the administrators and the staff in the buildings, and you'll see more opportunities for our students next year, which are definitely welcomed and needed to keep them active and engaged. In grades K through 5, we use math expressions as the primary resource for math, and a combination of full option science systems, otherwise known as FOSS, and mystery science for primary science resources. Our ELA program is naturally differentiated through the resources we use and instructional approaches teachers take. All programs offer multiple options for differentiation to meet the needs of all of our learners. Again, prior to the pandemic, in our elementary schools, you saw many different STEAM labs. That's science, technology, engineering, art, and music or mathematic labs come to play. And this is where students get to interact with each other, problem solve, focus on creativity and teamwork. We look forward to resuming these enrichment activities this fall. We will have new activities for our students to engage in, and they will be rotating through these labs, again, as a source of enrichment to focus on problem solving, teamwork, and creativity. What is the budget? What is in the budget to meet the needs of our most capable learners? The high-achieving students deserve to have their needs met. Again, the district continues to offer a comprehensive programming that includes expansive elective curriculum. That's up to 98 elective courses at the high school level. At our middle schools, there's programming that allows our students to take a wide array of survey courses in family and consumer science, technology, art, and music, as well as a menu of advanced placement and SUPA and accelerated honor courses at the high school. I spoke a little bit earlier, I won't repeat it, about our math and humanities program and our science program at the elementary and our STEAM labs. And I spoke about the middle schools, but in particular, middle school students will continue to develop their interest and aptitude in science, technology, engineering, and math while interacting with hands-on science equipment and projects. The lessons being provided to each grade level promote deeper levels of learning and are characterized as being engaging, fun, and enjoyed by both students and teachers. Again, remedial help. What are we going to do in the budget to support our K-5 students? The pandemic has left many of our students struggling. All students should be met where they are. and they deserve necessary support. The district will use federal funding to support learning loss district-wide. This does not impact the budget as we have presented. We'll be using federal funds to offset these costs. This includes summer school opportunities, lower class sizes, as was mentioned earlier. We'll continue to provide additional support in math and literacy remediation where it is needed, as well as the necessary social emotional support for the range of student needs that we've identified as students are transitioning back. We also plan to explore our current supplemental after-school offerings with continued tutoring opportunities and co-curricular activities. Again, more remedial work, credit recovery. How are we doing this and focusing our budget? Again, using federal dollars, we'll be focusing on learning loss through the summer. The dollar amount is required to be reported separately in a special aid federal fund and will not be part of the general fund budget. Again, you are not seeing some of this in the budget. You are seeing this, you will be seeing it as we use our federal funds. And again, expanding summer school, K-8. The district also plans to build on its high school credit recovery model that has been developed this past year. This model has been highly successful in engaging students for credit recovery opportunities with our Fairport educators. There'll be additional math and reading teachers added as well for those students who are falling behind. We'll be using summertime to adjust our curriculum maps so we can make sure that we meet our students' needs as they return to school in the fall. Right now, educators are assessing the readiness of our K-8 students, so when they return, we'll be prepared to support their academic needs and learning habits, and also develop the best ways to scaffold new material in a developmentally appropriate way. How are funds being used to support differentiation of instruction in the middle schools? The honors program is going away, but how are we supporting teachers to implement differentiation? This is always a priority and an important part of our coaching process between the district administrators and teachers. As we continue to review our Fairport lens with regard to high-quality instruction for all, the concept of differentiation is clearly rooted in our response to intervention model process. This speaks to sound core instruction for students academically and behaviorally. In addition to universal screening and progress monitoring, students, for indicators of student readiness, teachers construct experiences also based upon observations, interest, and other performance measures. This gives students to have a voice in their learning, choice in their learning, and express the depth of their understanding in a given discipline. And I'm going to transition now to facilities planning.
Great, thank you. The next group of questions circulated around capital projects and long-range facilities planning. So, first question is, are we still on track to move the 9th grade to the high school in 5 years, future planning? So at a recent Board of Ed meeting, this was one of the topics of discussion and reiterated as a future planning priority. So as we move forward, we'll continue to review and confirm. We talked about enrollment projections. We talked about our New York State building aid allowances, that's on our capital projects, as well as reviewing the building and site needs that we need in order to accommodate the addition of approximately over 400 students to the high school. Why is money allocated in the current project to Minerva to land if it's being slated to close? So at this point, the district plans on keeping Minerva to land and utilize the building on a long-term basis to support the different district needs. Overall, we'll look to explore any building lease opportunities that could help provide some revenue to the district. And, As we own the building, as it's currently an educational building, the building will continue to drive building aid at this point in time. So we're looking to address the infrastructure as well as some safety and security needs at Minerva DeLand. This helps maximize the state building aid that we receive on capital projects. Next question was, what about our school libraries? So back in 2018, we engaged in a comprehensive review through the District Advisory Council, looking at facilities, looking at priorities for future planning for capital projects. Here we had community engagement to look at the different perceptions, understand the expectations the community had with our existing facilities. So this process, remember, helped format and formulate inform the 2019 capital improvement project. The scope of work currently slated to kick off here in the early summer, as well as looking at future anticipated work long-term that could be in a future project referendum. So looking at those pieces as a baseline, we'll continue to review and prioritize the different improvements on an annual basis, some of which we look to complete within the maintenance budget, within the general fund, and others identifying what would be more appropriate for long-term capital planning. So assessing spaces such as the libraries are included in that conversation, technology rooms, labs, anything used to support the instructional program as a whole. So next question that came through regarding facilities was, what about the athletic facility upgrades? The fields, the baseball fields or swamps need proper drainage. So assuming we're referring to the fields at Fairport High School, if we remember, as part of the 2019 voter-approved project, the fields in the back of Fairport High School, baseball and softball, will be renovated and replaced with a multi-use turf field. During that, drainage will also be addressed. There is replacement of the current turf stadium here at Fairport High School at the end of its useful life. That's just a simple replacement of the turf itself. But those are some of the pieces we look at. Also, on an annual basis, we look and identify any fields that we can renovate, recreate crowns, and help with the different drainage. I know in past years we worked on a field at Martha Brown, so we do look at some of those that we can address through the general fund. But here, with the baseball and softball specifically, that is being addressed with the replacement with a multi-use turf field that can be used not only for baseball and softball, but other sports in our phys ed program, help support both instructional and the athletic program in the district. And that construction is slated to begin starting here in the summer in June. Next, we'll transition to questions surrounding fiscal sustainability. So one question came up and said, what's the difference between the budget increase and how that translates to the tax cap? So the budget increase from 2021 to 21-22 is 2.59% overall increase. Again, if you remember, a good portion of that does circle around that Boces capital project of $1.1 million increase. The tax levy represents a 2.05% increase over 2020-21. Utilizing the tax cap formula created at the state level, that does have exclusions that are able to be built in and allow capital work to be excluded from the calculation, or debt service, principal and interest payments, and purchase of capital equipment such as buses, as well as the Boces capital project. Those all fall as exclusions. So the 2.05% actually is compliant to the tax cap, projects a tax rate of $23.40 per $1,000 of assessed value, which is 2.05% over the 2020-21 tax rate. Just talking a little bit about history of our budget, tax levy, and tax rate. In 2020-21, for example, our tax levy went up 2.13%. However, the tax rate only went up 1.32%. So reason being right now is that we're projecting a tax rate increase based on the established assessed value in the town of Perrington. So if there's an increase in the tax base for the town of Perrington, the tax rate increase will actually be less than 2.05%. So just a key point there, historically, we have seen the tax rate increase actually come in less than the tax levy increase. Next, what's being done to assure long-term financial stability of the district while at the same time addressing long-term capital expenditure needs. Long-term planning is key. So again, referring back to the capital piece as a whole, we review our facility needs on an annual basis. We do that in tandem with our debt service schedule. We look at building aid. We look at our state aid cost allowances to maximize building aid at the state level for the school district. And all of these combined help us prioritize the needs, maximize the aid, and align future projects with the local share of debt that's falling off in future years to help minimize the tax impact as best as possible. We've prioritized the funding of the capital building reserve, which helps support the local share of future projects. So as you remember, if there are funds left over at the end of the school year, we've prioritized funds to go in our capital reserve. And the 2019 capital project, we actually allocated and will be pulling out $7 million of the capital reserve, which helps lower the local share of the borrowing overall. So the $56 million project actually will result in a borrowing of only approximately $49 million. So next, here are the details on the long-term plan and reserve funding. Are they set up for specific projects? How long can they build up before they're used? Reserving money for 10 years means taxpayers have paid into it, never see any benefit, and these need to be considered. So it's important, like I mentioned, the capital building reserve is a reserve we've placed funds into, and within a few years actually pulled money back out in order to give back to the taxpayers through the capital project approval. We also budget on an annual basis funds to come in from our pension system reserves that we're allowed to have, our employment insurance reserve, as well as our tax surcharge reserve, which is allowed to pay for tax refunds. There is a reserve fund plan. It's updated annually and reviewed by the Audit and Finance Committee, then approved by the board. Last approved in November of 2020 at the board meeting. And then we reviewed, again, the reserve fund balances at the March of 2021 budget presentation. So some of the different reserve funds we have established would include capital reserves. We have that for building projects, buses, and technology. We also are allowed to have reserves for budgetary contingencies, help protect against known and unknown risks. For example, we have liability reserves, workers' compensation reserve, employer retirement system reserve for both the teachers' retirement system and employees' retirement system. If you remember, the teachers' retirement system sub-fund reserve was recently just approved at the state level a couple of years ago. So those are to name the few of the different reserves that the school district does have in place and funded. Again, all under law and funded accordingly, and also funds pulled out by resolution or voter approval as required.
Mr. Stevens, I'm going to let you take a little breather there, get some water, and I'm going to pinch it for you for a little bit. Thank you for your thorough responses. Again, lots of good questions about fiscal sustainability and important components of our budget. But the commentator said there was $400,000 spent on professional development this school year. Can there be transparency on what for? That was the question. The budget dollars are allocated to support professional development for staff within the district and through our Boces opportunities. Priorities include social emotional learning, restorative practices, K-5 math and literacy instruction, K-12 culturally responsive framework, assessment for learning, instructional technology, and grant writing. We actually did increase the grant writing a little bit more because there's a federal grant that we are interacting with and learning about, and there'll be much more work in helping with that. Again, that's Boces, in which you do receive aid back for those expenditures. That's relative to professional development. It's important that we have staff that is prepared, ready, and given the right tools and resources to be successful. The next question was, are we allowed to vote down the administration portion of the budget, or do we have to vote yes or no as a whole? I won't go back into that as a whole unless Mr. Stevens wants to add more to it at this point in time. We said that. We gave you specific details earlier, but the school budget is presented to voters in totality. It is required to be broken down into three part format, 3 separate parts. That's program, capital, and administrative. The components may not be voted on separately. That's state law, that's not our law. And again, you see that there was an increase in the administrative line simply because there was a $1.1 million payment to Boces for a capital project that they're engaging or doing at their site on their facilities. We have over 170 students participating in and benefiting from Boces programming. Our students use Boces services for special ed programming, occupational ed programming, and other educational services the district may not be able to offer on a cost-effective basis.
If I could just add a little bit to that, on top of our student participation in Boces, we also work closely with Boces on the technology side for our support, our network support. We also are able to work and collaborate with Boces on equipment purchases for technology, which helps us maximize Boces aid. And they have staff over there that helps us put together project plans and so forth for those purchases. So it spreads widely across the different services that we're able to access at Boces.
That we benefit from. And again, without that $1.1 million payment, that budget line of administrative budget, as I have up here on the screen, would be 1.43%. There you go, Mr. Stevens.
Great, thank you. This is more of the same surrounding that question around the administrative portion of the budget. As was shown on the previous slide, the administrative portion of the budget is $16 million, which is up from $14.9 million in 2020-21. Primarily that Boces capital project payment again. I'm not going to review all of the different pieces here on the question. I believe we went over those a few different times surrounding the question on the administrative portion of the budget. This is specifically allocated for those pieces mentioned before.
And once again, we will be posting the answers to these questions in the form that we have here so community members can preview it at their own leisure.
So then the next question asks, why are we still raising taxes with all of the extra state aid and federal funding coming in? Overall, in looking at a school budget in whole, there are pieces throughout the budget as it relates to salaries and benefits and the different pieces that school districts have to pay for within the budget. And the state and federal dollars really help close our gap that we had, if we remember back in the draft 1 of the total budget. So they're really beneficial with the increase in foundation aid, which is our overall operating aid, again, that we've been underfunded on for many years based on the formula. We've seen flat increases in foundation aid. So that was really helpful overall to help the district continue to offer, maintain, and then enhance our current programs and services and not reduce offerings as we transition out of the pandemic. We've seen additional needs surrounding spacing and equipment and cleaning supplies and staffing and supports for students that the district will continue to offer and utilize the federal funds as we do transition out. So overall, the funds help us support our budget goals of trying to maximize our resources related to programming, cultural competency, instructional technology, as well as facilities planning. The federal funds are available over a multi-year period, so it's important for the district to long-term plan over the next few years that these funds are available. There are rules and requirements surrounding how school districts may spend the funds, so we'll be following those requirements and managing the funds over the next few years. So overall, very beneficial to help the district continue to transition out and offer many of the things that Mr. Provenzano mentioned before in terms of the supports that the district will need as we continue to transition out and offer for students.
As we transition to human resources and hiring, can the district put out additional details relative to the new district level position? I believe this new role is critical to future planning in Fairport, and I would love to see how this position will carry out the new district goals. This is a district level, district office cabinet position to support school improvement and community engagement, as I've been sharing throughout the budget process. It will focus on our district policies and engage in data analysis to inform future strategic planning, hiring practices, curriculum management, district communication, budget allocation, professional development, and once again, community engagement. Coordinates school and community relations to ensure fair and equitable treatment of students and engagement with families. One thing that we have learned is that our families are really interested in engaging with our school district. We anticipate doing this and look forward to developing this opportunity with our community. Mr. Loff.
Thank you, Superintendent Provenzano. First, I'd like to address the question that speaks to diversity in our hiring practices. So the question states, I want my children to see the diversity of our world reflected back at them in their classrooms. What efforts are being made to hire more teachers of color? This is certainly a huge initiative for our district, and I'm proud to say that we've made some progress recently in diversifying our teaching staff. But to that end, the HR department continues to work on increasing the diversity of the workforce through a variety of avenues here in Fairport. There's also an HR subcommittee of our Diversity Council that is working on this initiative. Some of the steps taken and next steps include having a deeper understanding of the current composition of the Fairport faculty and staff, updating our HR website, job postings that embody the district's commitment to hiring and supporting a highly qualified and diverse workforce, updates to our application process that encourage our candidates that are applying to speak to diversity, equity, and inclusion, enhancement of, as well as additional interview questions during the interview process to improve and ensure our commitment to hiring for diversity, equity, inclusion, and cultural competence, training for our interview participants pertaining to cultural competence and unconscious bias, increase our networking and recruitment efforts, both internally and externally. This also includes deepening our partnerships with local colleges and creating new partnerships with historically black colleges and universities, and also increasing our advertising and promotion of positions through new and different avenues that reach a more diverse population of candidates. The next or last set of questions in human resources really pertains to open positions and hiring of non-instructional staff. So there were a couple different questions that came through this lens. And specifically, some examples would be cleaners, bus drivers, and nurses. And we have a variety of needs in these areas. And we certainly recognize the important role that all of our employees play in the lives of our students. Fairport is not alone when it comes to the challenge of hiring in these need and shortage areas. But regardless, the district is committed to recruiting and retaining highly qualified staff in all areas. And the district continues to work with leadership in all of these different employee units to come up with attractive and creative solutions to fill these positions, including competitive wages and benefits.
Return to school expectations. And again, we do not notice any questions in the chat. That's okay. That's why we kept going on and on. Definitely enough questions here for us to answer, but this is an important one. How are we planning to ensure all students are back next year, regardless of distancing requirements? Could we hire extra staff or rent more space, etc.? The district is currently full-time at K-6 and plans to continue full-time in person in the fall in K-6. The district is also planning for a full in-person return to school in the fall for grades 7 through 12. That means all of our students will be back full-time 5 days a week in the fall. We are currently engaging or making contingency plans to use federal funds to increase instructional sections and to support our students. We'll be talking more to the community about our federal funds and how we plan on using them in the very near future. We would hope that our community would participate and see how we are prioritizing these federal funds. But part of this prioritization of our federal funds would be to reduce our class sizes, increase our sections, using these funds to offset any additional costs. Again, this will allow for lower class sizes and distancing throughout the K-12 buildings. And once again, the mask or no mask, the district will continue to follow New York State and the CDC guidelines related to masking moving forward. Those are our questions. We want to open the floor and give those who are at home the opportunity to ask questions for follow-up or for clarification. So to avoid any awkward silence, we are going to move forward. Again, we are always accessible. You can always reach us via email. This exchange will be live on our social media as well. This social media platform and our Facebook account here for the district. You'll be able to see this presentation in the very near future. Please don't forget, the thought exchange will be shared in its entirety to the community by the end of the week. Most importantly, the Fairport School budget vote and board elections will be Tuesday, May 18th. That will be 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. in the Johanna Perrin Middle School Gymnasium. Again, we'll be sharing this information in multiple different formats as we near May 18th. Thank you very much. I hope everyone has a nice evening. And thank you for participating in the thought exchange.